Today, we're announcing that new framework. It's called SwiftUI.
Hey Code Crew, it's Chris here. Let's just dive into it, shall we? Yesterday, Apple announced SwiftUI, a new way to build user interfaces using code. And this is huge because the developer community has always been divided between using storyboards or using programmatic UI. Now, SwiftUI looks easy enough for a beginner to grasp and yet offers the maintainability of a coded UI. So the best of both worlds, right? Well, this question plagued me and I couldn't fall asleep last night, so I ended up staying up until 3 a.m. to figure out if SwiftUI really is the holy grail. So in this SwiftUI tutorial, I'm going to show you what I've learned and I'm going to give you my verdict. Stay tuned. I need to give Apple props because they've created a really nice set of SwiftUI tutorials that walks you through the basics and all of the aspects of the framework. I highly recommend that you check it out, or you could just watch me demo it for you right now. I gotta be honest, I'm pretty tired right now from staying up, but I'm gonna push through it because if it weren't for you, yes, you, watching my videos and supporting my channel, we wouldn't be here 200K strong. So if you're brand new to the channel and this is the first time you're watching, I want to welcome you to the Code Crew and thank you. Oh yeah, and hit that like button and subscribe button because that stuff really helps the channel and it lets me know that you want to see more tutorials like these. Alright, with that said, let's look at some code. So by the end of this tutorial, you'll have something that looks like this right here on the screen. Now, don't be deceived, this might look kind of simple, but it actually touches upon a lot of the different aspects of SwiftUI, kind of core principles that you're going to need to be able to work with it. I found it to be a really good tutorial, and it was actually one of those tutorials I mentioned that Apple has. That's this one right here. All the links will be below in the description. So this particular one starts at the very, very basics where you're going to create some text views. You're going to explore the new canvas aspect of Xcode 11. You're going to be able to combine some views and modify them to create that composite view there. This view right here is actually made up of a couple of different programmatic views. So that's really, really cool, and you're going to see how we're going to do that. Let me first show you kind of like the high level steps we're going to go through in this tutorial. So we're going to create a new Xcode project. I'm going to show you a little bit about the interface and how it's changed. We're going to create some text views and we're going to modify it from the canvas and then through code. And we're going to start using some stacks, which allows you to combine elements together and arrange them horizontally or vertically. We're going to create some custom image views. And then we're going to also look at how we can use some UI kit elements and bring them into use with SwiftUI. Then we're going to combine these views together to form this detail view here. And a cool thing that Apple also has with their tutorials is this little quiz at the end. So I highly recommend that you come here and check your understanding after you watch this. So I'm going to be walking through all of these steps and it's going to take a lot less time than the 40 minutes that they've got estimated here. So don't worry about that. All right, so let's jump right in. I'm going to close this Xcode project and we're going to start fresh. So first we're going to create a brand new Xcode 11 project. And we're going to want to choose a single view app under iOS. I'm going to call this SwiftUI Demo 2. I've done a couple of these at this point. But the important thing you want to do is make sure that you've got Use SwiftUI checked. Then you're going to go Next. And I'm going to create it in my sample apps folder. Alright, so now we've got a brand new project. So I know there's a lot to take in and it looks a little different from what we're used to seeing in Xcode 10. Namely, there is this kind of preview pane here, and this is called the canvas. With SwiftUI, what you're going to write in code, you're actually going to get a preview of it here. So as you're changing your code to modify your UI, it's updating in the canvas. But let's not jump too far. Let's take a step back and let's take a look at what's changed here in terms of the files that you get for your new project. So I'm going to go up to Editor. I'm going to choose Editor Only and just hide that little preview pane for now. And let's take a look here. So we've got the app delegate, and if you've worked with iOS before in Swift projects, you're used to this. This file here, it contains a lot of the lifecycle events for your application. But what you'll notice is that we also have the scene delegate now. Now, what's important to note here is this part down here where it sets the root view. And this part is where you specify the initial view for your app when it launches. Now, what is this content view? It seems to be creating a new instance of content view. Well, that's what you have right here. So this content view describes a single view in your app. You'll notice that we don't have a storyboard file here. We still have our asset library, and we have a launch screen storyboard, and then the AP list, which we've always had. So let's wait until my Xcode responds again. All right, so you can see storyboards are just as slow as ever. Okay, which is a very common complaint from people. So SwiftUI might be a lot better. You'll see. So let's go into content view here. And before I talk about what's in the file here, let's just try to run this and preview it in the canvas and see what we get. So let's open up the canvas again. And you're not going to see anything at first until you hit resume. And you're going to have to wait a while it starts up the simulator in the background. Now, for me, when I first installed Xcode 11 and I tried to preview it, it actually took a while and then it crashed and I couldn't get it to run. I just kept getting some error here, up here. And then even when I tried to run in the project and I tried to run it in a simulator, it was still failing to launch. And it wasn't until I closed Xcode and just did the good old restart the computer trick did everything start working again. So that's just a tiny tip for you. If you encounter not being able to run the simulator or seeing the preview, just restart. That's going to fix things. At least it did for me. All right, so let me just get rid of some of the clutter here so we can focus on the SwiftUI part. All right, that looks good. So you notice you have some zooming controls in here. And you also have some controls in here, which I'll get to in a second. But first, let's take a look at this. So we have pretty much an empty view, and we have hello world. Let's take a look at how we generate that through the code right here in our content view.swift file. We have two different structures. The first one conforms to the view protocol, and it describes all of the content and the layout for our view. The second structure conforms to the preview provider protocol, and this is merely code to generate the preview that we see on the right-hand side. Now, the reason why this is separate is to give us flexibility on what we want to see on the right-hand side. For example, if we have some sort of really complex view, some really complex view hierarchies, and then we don't want to see the whole thing because it'd be hard to just work on maybe a small aspect of it, we can modify the code in here to preview on the right-hand side exactly just the part that we want to see that we're working on. That is why we have this structure here. Now you'll notice that we have these tags here, and these are called directives, and this particular one is just saying that only run this code in between here if you're in debug mode. And when you're building your app by default, you're running it, you're debugging, you're like building it, you're fixing bugs, you are in debug mode. At the time when you're ready to publish your app and you package it up for deployment to upload to the App Store, it's going to go from debug to production. And so this code right here that generates the previews, this code won't ever be in your final build. It's not going to be run. These previews are mainly for when you're building your app to make it easier for you to control what you want to see on the right-hand side. Because as you're about to see, these previews are pretty cool. So for example, this is the text element that is describing that hello world label there. It's called a text view. And we can, let's say, change it. And as you can see, it's updating live. Now, the cool thing about this preview here is that you can modify what you see here directly from the preview. So if you hold down Command and you click on this text view, you're going to be able to do things like embed it in a different stack view or group, or put it in a button, or you can inspect it and then you can change some of its properties. So I can change this back to, let's say, hello SwiftUI. When I do that, take a look at what happens to your code right there. right? Let's do that again. Let's inspect. This time we're going to change the font. We're going to choose a system font type of title to describe the size. And then you can see that it adds this piece of code right here to your text view. Now, they've put it on a separate line to make it easier to read, but essentially what's happening is that it's just calling a method on your text view object right here. So in SwiftUI, you're going to see kind of different rows of modifiers. They're basically calling these methods modifiers, and they kind of chain them together. So for example, if I wanted to make this text view green, I can use another method and just chain it on here. And there is a color method right there, and I'm going to choose green. So you can see that it updates it there, and I'm just going to press enter like that and put it on a new line. So it looks kind of funny, but essentially you're just creating an element and calling a method on it, and then that returns the revised element, and then you're calling a method on that, and you're just chaining methods like that. All right, so let's put them on their individual lines again. Now, one last time, let's go into the preview here and hold down Command and click our text view there, go inspect, and let's change that text to Turtle Rock, and let's, whoops, where did that go? Let's go inspect, and let's change the green, the color back to inherited, so that's going to turn it black. Now you can see that, it changes the code there, and you might say that things might get confusing if you can change things like that from the code side and from the preview side. If there's ever any discrepancy between the two, the code is always the source of truth. At least that's what the documentation says. So if you're not liking what you're seeing in the preview, it's always the code that is always right, because this preview is just being generated from the code if you think about it. Now I want to add a couple more text views under Turtle Rock. Now the way to do this is using a element called the vertical stack. And if you've worked with UIKit before, this is called the stack view, and it's just the alignment, it's vertical. Well, here in SwiftUI, they call it a VStack. And there's a couple of ways that you can declare this. So you can just type the code, or you can, now this is kind of cool. You can hold down Command on your keyboard, click text, and then you can embed in VStack, right? Because we're going to put multiple text views into this vertical stack, so they're stacked one on top of each other. Or you can click on the preview like this, and you can embed in VStack. Or you can actually open up the object library here. It's opening up on my external monitor. And you can choose vertical stack, and you can literally drag this into your code like that to create some code. So there are so many different ways to do this. I personally feel like it might be a little confusing for people, but I guess having different ways allows people to choose which way they like. Okay, so we have a VStack here. It has a pair of curly brackets like that, and you can put your text views into there like so, and you're going to have two labels, one on top of each other. So this one, what did they call it? Joshua Tree National Park, I believe. And let's make this one font a sub-headline, and we're going to go ahead and put that down there. Now, we're also going to align these two labels by, I'm still calling them labels, but they're text views. You're going to align these text views onto the left. So when you create the vertical stack, you can actually specify some parameters. And one of them, see, you can specify some of them here. You can specify the alignment. That's what we want. So for the alignment, let's go leading, and then the others are actually optional, so we can leave that out for now. So we've got them aligned on the leading edge now. Now we also want to put a label beside Joshua Tree National Park to say which state it's in. So what we can do is, now I'm going to do it a different way. Hold down Command and click that guy, and embed it in a horizontal stack. So we're going to put another text view in here and call this California. And there it is. So this one will be also a font subheadline. There we go. All right, so that's how we've structured something so far. This is too close together, so what we can do is place a spacer in between Joshua Tree National Park and California. And to do that, we're just going to add an element in between our two text views in our HStack. And this is just a spacer object. When you do that, it basically expands and pushes everything out. This spacer takes up all the available space that it can. So it basically pushed everything out to the edges. Now we can add some padding to the vertical stack, or VStack. I'm still using UIKit terminology. It's hard to shake. All right, so this is our VStack. I'm going to dot notation, and this is padding. So by default, it looks like there is a default sort of padding. So just by calling the padding method, it's going to add some padding there. All right, now we're going to see how we can add an image to our view. So first of all, we're going to have to add that image to our asset library. And this image actually came from the project files from the Apple tutorial. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this image and drag it into my asset library. Now, if you need this image, the links are in the description. That will link you to the tutorial page, and one of the links at the very top, you can grab the project assets. All right, so we've got this asset called Turtle Rock, and instead of just adding it to our content view here, we're going to create a different view. And then what we're going to end up doing is just combining these different views into a bigger one. So it's going to give you an idea of what's possible. So I'm going to create a new file here. I'm going to create a new file in my project, and we're under iOS, we're going to choose SwiftUI view down here. Notice you can still add storyboards, so those aren't completely gone. All right, so this one is going to be called circle image. Make sure that this should be checked on, right? If this is not on, make sure it's checked. All right, so we're going to create it in our project here. And you'll notice, let's just move this up here. And let's close that file navigator. So you'll notice that, again, we have this structure that conforms to the view protocol for this new view that we've created called circle image. And we also have this preview, right, which is going to show us what we see here. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit resume just so we can see something. But we're not going to want to show a text view. Right, so I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm going to use an image view instead. Now, the image view actually has an initializer where I can just pass in the asset name. So I think this is Turtle Rock. So let's see, there we go. So that's really cool. The image view also has a method called clip shape. So then I can pass in a shape. I'm going to pass in a circle. And it's just as easy as that. So this new circle object, you can actually use it as a shape that you can display on the view. And now I want to add a border to this circular image view. So the way we do that is we call this overlay method, and we can pass in a view. But instead of creating it directly in there, I'm going to create it out here. So what we're going to want to do is create a new circle, and this circle we are basically going to give it a stroke, and we are going to choose the one with content and line width. So for this guy, we can choose, let's say, color gray, and then for the line width, we're going to choose 2. And then I'm going to take this circle that has this stroke here, and I'm going to use it as my overlay. So you can see that, I don't know if you can see right there, but we do have a slight border around our circle now. And then lastly, well, we can actually, before we do that, let's add these guys on new lines so it's a little easier to see. We're going to add a shadow of 10 points. And lastly, we're going to change this gray color to a white. And we get this sort of resulting image, which is very Apple-like, wouldn't you agree? Okay, so we're actually done with this circle image now, and we're going to work on a third view before we combine everything together. So let's go back into our file navigator and let's go add a new file. And once again, we're going to choose SwiftUI view. And we're going to call this one map view. Again, make sure that target is checked under your project right there. So we've got this new map view. All right, let's put it right there. So in this one, we actually want to use a map view from the MapKit framework. So in order to use that, we have to import MapKit. And here's the part of the Apple tutorial that I still don't fully understand just yet. But if you want to use UIKit views with SwiftUI, instead of conforming to the view protocol, you're going to conform to the UI view representable protocol. And what you do is you actually get rid of this part and you have two different other functions instead. One is make UI view, and this is where you generate an instance of that UIKit view. So in our case, it would simply be an MK map view. So we create a new instance of it. And then the other one is a update UI view. And this is where we would put the code to update the UI view, the UIKit view. All right, so let's see what it says here. UI view type. Yeah, so this one, it should be returning a MK map view. And this parameter, yeah, this is actually fine. So actually, let's see if we can see anything. Let's hit resume. All right, so you see that kind of brown beige, that little legal thing. So this is kind of like the beginnings of a map. I wonder if it's loading. So in order to view the maps, we actually have to hit this button and go into live preview. Did that work? There we go. So this is running, it's going, it's trying to generate the view. So I think we're just going to get a basic map. And then in here, we're going to want to set the exact region that we want to see around a set of coordinates according to the tutorial. Oh, I guess that would be Turtle Rock. So for this part of the demo, I'm just going to grab the MapKit code to center the map around that set of coordinates, because what we're focused on here is showing SwiftUI and learning about SwiftUI. And so I can describe what the lines of code do though. All right, so let's see if, since this is a live preview, it should be just generating, there's an error here. So let's just describe what the code is doing first. So we're creating a set of coordinates with a latitude and a longitude right here. And then we're creating sort of like a region. Well, this is the region. So this is basically saying from that set of coordinates, how much do you want to span out? And then this MK coordinate region is going to center it around this coordinate with this sort of span. And then basically what you do is you call the setRegion method, you pass in the region, and that's it. So our map view is actually called UI view. So I need to change this. And we're going to call the setRegion on it. And it's generating, it's going, it's going, it's going. Boom. I think. I'm not sure. I'm really bad at geography. I'm gonna assume that it's good. I don't, oh, there it is. I'm so dumb. There's Joshua Tree National Park. Now's the really fun part. So we've got our 3 views. We're gonna combine them into an overall detailed view for our app. So we're gonna save this. We're gonna go back to the content view. And what we've got here is basically just the text. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna embed this entire stack view, VStack, VStack, VStack. We're gonna embed this VStack in another VStack so that we can add our map view element and our circle image element and then combine it all together. All right, so I'm gonna hold down Command, click this guy, embed in VStack. We've got that. This is the closing, oh, that's the closing bracket for that guy. It's not completely lined up. So here, we're just gonna put a map view. So let's see that get put on the preview right here. And I might just have to go into live preview as well. Yeah, let's go into live preview so we can see the map. Cool, there's Joshua Tree National Park. What we can also do is modify the frame of the map view just so it doesn't take up all of that space. So if we call frame, you can actually set the width and the height. You can set a couple of different things. Let me just see. That's not it. Come on, autocomplete. There we go. Set the width, height, alignment. But if we just set the height to 300, let's say, it's going to set the height to 300, but it's going to still take up the entire width like that. So that's really cool. And then we're going to add our circle image in between that. So we've got the map view at the top and then the circle image, and then we've got our VStack of labels. Text views, not labels, text views. Image, map. All right, so we're going to add some offsets to bring that circle image into the map a little bit using the offset method. And most of these methods are kind of new to me, actually. So, you know, I think over time when we're working with UIKit a lot more, they're going to become second nature. Uh-oh, I think it did something wrong. So offset, let's try that again first. All right, let's take a look. Oh, it's just a spacing. Is it a spacing? All right, well, it looks like Xcode 11 is still a little buggy. All right, so what I'm going to do is just try to quit. I'm gonna restart. All right, let's try and generate this preview again. Looks like we've got an error here. So that, I wonder if that's gonna cause an issue here. So let's change that. This, inside the map view, inside the update UI view function, the type of the UI view should probably be MK map view. All right, so let's go back there. Succeeded. All right, all right. So our offset did work. Let's go live preview again. I mean, Xcode 11 is still in beta, right? So keep that in mind. Okay, so in order to bring up the label, we're going to call a different method called padding. And we can specify the edges. So for the bottom edge, we want to do length of minus 130. So that's gonna pull the label up. And then we're almost there, guys. And then in order to move this whole thing up to the top, we're gonna add a spacer as the last element of this root VStack. And remember, the spacer kind of tries to take up all the space that it can, so it's gonna push all of the elements above it to the top. So that's the ending bracket for this guy, right? So this is my fourth element spacer. All right. And then in order to get the map view under the notch so that it ignores the safe area there, we are going to add another method called ignore the safe area, and we're going to specify the top. Ta-da! Now I want to turn it over to you. Leave a quick comment below and tell me if you're optimistic about SwiftUI or you still have your doubts about it. I really want to hear what you think. And if you don't want to miss the next SwiftUI tutorial, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. For now, there's more wwdc and SwiftUI content right over there. Alright, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson.